Well, Merry Christmas and welcome, Pat, this morning, and talking about a couple of interesting topics this morning. The budget, first of all, you suggested perhaps we're getting an early Christmas present here.
Yeah, and I was surprised. From looking at the numbers, first of all, I think Scott Meacham was surprised, the treasurer, at least in the details. Meacham is never overly enthusiastic, nor is he overly pessimistic. He just kind of tries to track with the data. And I was certain from hints he had given, in recent months, that, for example, on the income tax possible cut, the trigger, as it's called, that we would come in, the growth in the tax revenue base would come in just short of the 4%. Thanks to a run-up in the last 2 or 3 months, they absolutely blew the lid off that. By the current estimate, there's 5.65% total revenue growth. And that, in turn, triggers a tax cut from 5.5 to 5.25, which we've talked about before. So that's a pretty significant policy development, and it's a sign that, maybe he's been right, and because he's always been more optimistic than the analysis that I'm not an economist or anything, but I study this stuff. So that's the first thing. Now, because of the lack of stimulus funds and other factors, no rainy day fund to speak of, things that have been detailed in past reports, there's still a serious challenge. There's going to be a gap of $220 million plus or minus, and it'll probably be minus. And what I mean by that is this is the preliminary finding that was issued this week by the Board of Equalization, which, by the way, will have a 100% different cast of characters. It's going from all Democrat to all Republican in the new year. But when they do the final certification of numbers, budget estimates and projections in February, Meacham believes, and I have no reason to doubt him, that 220 million plus or minus is going to be quite a bit lower, and that at the end of the session there actually will be money to make a significant, not a huge, but a significant rainy day fund deposit. Well, what that means is the fight over the budget trimming is still there, but as Governor Henry put it in an interview there in the Capitol after the BOE meeting, the equalization meeting, is the way he put it, this is manageable. This is something that, having gone through 3 at least, maybe 4 now, I think it's 4 tough budgets out of 8 years in office, he said this is manageable. He didn't characterize it one way or the other compared to those other budgets, but it's manageable. That's the bottom line.
Oh, that's a big change from where we thought we were going to be.
That's right.
That's a big deal. The other big story, of course, is the criminal charges being filed against Representative Randy Terrill and former Senator Debbe Leftwich. Shocked about this?
Well, no, it's not. Let's see, am I shocked? No. When people were speculating in October as to why the district attorney, David Prater, had not taken action, they're sensitive, even though he didn't even have an opponent this year, as an elected official himself and also an honorable man. I'm sure he was sensitive about, I'm not going to impact the election one way or the other until I'm ready to speak authoritatively. He's done that now. There's an indictment of both. I think that was the reason for the delay, is my point. He's indicted both Randy Terrill and Senator Leftwich, and it's a significant moment in the careers, of course, of both of those people. It's only allegations. It's a charge. Right. It's an indictment. There hasn't been a conviction. The time will tell on that. I do have I'm playing with some reflections, trying to think of the next level on this and what it means. I think it expresses at least an aspect of the popular will as being reflected in recent political trends across the spectrum, and that is a demand for transparency and openness in government. People are tired of backroom deals. It just so happens that the way that Terrill tried to structure this particular deal appears to have probably violated a state statute that hadn't been utilized prior to this, and that is explicitly tying to, the future of a political office to a deal in return for, a consideration. Right. In this case, it would have been her leaving in order for him to put in a close friend and ally in her place on the South Side if the voters had agreed with that. And ultimately, that didn't happen. The justice system will sort this out, but whether or not it passes the legal test, it didn't pass the test in the court of David Prater, and probably won't pass in the court of public opinion, regardless of guilt or innocence at the end. Those of us in the news media, a lot of grassroots groups, left and center and right, advocate transparency and openness. This was certainly not done with transparency and openness. It's a distillation of the kinds of problems that come from the fury and flurry and frantic pace of the final days of the session, something that, to his credit, Speaker Steele appears to be working very hard to correct, because they say, well, there's certain kind of, you know, it's already in law, you don't do certain things in the last week, and he's saying, we really mean it, and we're going to enforce that, and it's going to be real. I think voters are expecting elected officials to shun any temptation to take advantage of their position. People are interested in good, robust debates, arguments about what the best public policy is. Then you vote and you see which side prevails, then the courts review it and we go on. But doing a Republican version of Gene Stipe, you know, has made some people pretty uneasy, to the point that there's been a lot of disquietude about the behavior of some legislators for quite a while. This is not conservative or liberal, right or left, Democrat or Republican, and I think that's borne out by the nature of the indictment. It was about backroom deals, and I can't reach a conclusion at this point. I don't think anybody can about how it's going to play out, because for one thing, Terrill has a darn good criminal defense lawyer.
Yes,
but I've read the allegations, the summary. It's basically a narrative, and it's written in kind of dry tone, but it's pretty gripping reading. It's 24 pages long, and this is not a good few days for Terrill and for Leftwich.
We'll just have to watch and see what happens here, but of course you can read more about this on Pat's blog, CapitolBeatOK.com. Thanks for being with us. Have a happy holiday. We'll see you next week.